So you want to live forever-ish. Hey, well, then you got to know what's in and what's not. Stick around to find out.
You're listening to Live Foreverish, a show dedicated to helping you live just a little longer. Here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Crystal Gossard.
All right, Dr. Crystal, the ins and outs of living forever-ish, strong and vital and, energetic, right? All the stuff we like.
Yes, living a little bit longer and a whole lot stronger.
Okay, there you go. Our first in. So remember, there's 3 ins and an out. The ins are the things they're in. These are research supported things that you want to do, you want to incorporate, et cetera, et cetera. But then the out is obviously you don't want that, right?
Right.
So in number 1, this is interesting because it's about measuring your body in different ways. Anthropometric measurements for risk assessment. The main one that's been out there, Dr. Crystal, for so long is good old-fashioned BMI. And that's not the best thing to rely on all the time, is it?
Well, it has received a lot of scrutiny over the years. It's easy. Anyone can do it, height, weight. And for the most part, unless you are, a bodybuilder, it's pretty accurate for if you're looking at a way to assess large populations of people. Obviously, there will be the outliers. And then, of course, it's not the best assessment for people who have more of the pear shape, which is you're carrying more weight in your hips and your thighs. So, think populations, African Americans, have more hips and thighs. And so you may weigh more as it relates to your height, but maybe your waist is not that large. And so it's important to kind of think about a way to do a better assessment to encompass larger populations of people.
Yeah, and so that's why the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology Commission, right? They created I guess we're calling it a revised obesity definition that still uses BMI, right? But it's combining it with some other measurements of your body, such as waist to hip ratio, waist circumference, those kind of things. So I guess what they've done is they've included more stuff, so we're getting a better picture of what's really going on.
Right. Yes, and we're getting a better idea of adipose tissue or fat tissue. And so we want to be able to, when we're putting people into categories, and when you think about what's happening now, especially with clinical obesity now being a thing, and being treated as such. And you need to have a better way of defining clinical versus non-clinical obesity. And this is a step forward in the right direction.
Yeah. So preclinical obesity would be you do have excess body fat, but you seem fine. There's no organ issue, no organ dysfunction. There's no physical limitation versus clinical obesity, which you do have some organ dysfunction. You do have some physical impairment.
Right. Yes, and that's important to know. There are some people who may be, dealing with overweight or a person dealing with obesity, and they aren't. It's not manifesting
Right.
as a health issue as far as like chronic inflammation, arthritis, blood glucose concerns,
Right.
and so there is a difference.
Yeah.
But what I like about this new measurement, which it was very shocking to me, the researchers applied their new measurement parameters, all of these new parameters, including the BMI, to a population of people. So there were about 14,000 over 14,000 participants, and they analyzed data that was previously collected for these participants. And then they applied the new parameters to identify, would that kind of eliminate some of those people who may at one point have been classified as being obese? Does it take them out now that we're adding in hip to waist ratio and some of and the waist circumference? And they were shocked to find that it was the opposite.
Right. So more under this new definition, I think 75% or 3 in 1 adults have obesity versus about 40% just in the BMI, right?
That's, I mean, just using the BMI. And what's shocking to me is the argument is that BMI, as I mentioned before, kind of overestimates that people are like, it's putting more people into categories of being obese, but it looks like it's underestimating by a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And so
yeah,
go ahead.
it's interesting. It's one of those. But let me back up for a sec, because this is, I think, where this becomes an important conversation. Because remember, we're talking about live forever-ish, right? We're talking about wanting to live stronger, longer, all that kind of stuff. What does all this mean then to someone like me and you? Like, what are we now going to need? Not just a scale at home? Is there other things we need to purchase to be able to do these measurements? Like, what does this mean to me in my home?
Well, I think what it means to you for living forever-ish in your home is, yes, I mean, it's just a tape measure that most people already have. So it's you have a scale, you have a tape measure, but I also think it's what's happening in your doctor's offices. They put you on a scale the moment you walk in the door. Clothes, shoes, everything
Yeah,
on. You
yeah.
just ate. So they put you on your scale, and then the doctors proceed to have their little conversation with you at some point during that consult about, you need to lose weight, and so they are
Yeah.
using BMI. And what I think is happening, or should happen, is that we take a better assessment and we have a better idea of who's truly at risk for metabolic syndrome, and really what strategies need to take place. We know if you have the central obesity, that's causing or can lead to fatty liver disease, diabetes, and a host of other chronic inflammatory diseases. Even cancer is associated with a larger waist circumference. So I think it's really helping people to um, understand their true risk so that they can take the steps to move in the right
I love
direction.
that. I think that was fantastic. That's a great summary of what this means to our listeners and to us. And I know your analogy of somebody, or your story of somebody going into their doctor's office, and they're you just ate, you got all your clothes on, you got your heavy boots on, and you're weighing yourself. And even when I do that, you know what I do? I still take out my cell phone and I put it on the side table, just in case that makes a difference.
Well, I asked them, like, can I put my purse down?
Yeah, let me get
Let me get
whatever I
my
can take off. Let me
my
take off. That's
10-pound
appropriate.
purse and put it to the side, please. Thank you.
Yeah, but I do like that. It's one of those things where you and I have been talking about in Life Extension, who I think has been way ahead of the game in all this. We've been talking about waist circumference and waist to hip ratio as being, I don't want to say more important, but giving us more information about who's really at risk for cardiovascular disease and metabolic disease. So, isn't that really the end goal here? It's not just to look at somebody, Dr. Crystal, and say, well, you're obese. It's really to be able to say, here's what you're at risk for.
Right.
Right. And obesity comes with that, but this is what the risk is showing. And so let's focus on not just the weight loss, but other things we can do to mitigate that risk for metabolic syndrome, as an example.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Let's move on to the next in for Living Foreverish. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I find this really interesting because for a very long time, I was taking an oral version of a nutrient that boosts this very key compound in your body. See, I'm teasing it, Dr. Crystal. And I've always wondered, because based on the research, how much that oral dose is really impacting cellular levels of this key compound for energy management called NAD+. And now we're talking about using IV NAD+, which is really up to now, Dr. Crystal, is it safe for me to say, has been kind of reserved for people who could really afford it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a luxury add-in, but it's available at many infusion. The IV bars now. You can get the membership
It's so funny.
and
The
go and
IV
get
bar.
your cocktail, your Myers cocktail. You can get
Do they
all
serve beer when you sit down and get the IV? No, just
no, they're not serving beer at the IV bars, at least not the ones that I know about. But you can pick out your menu of whatever you want, and then you pay a pretty penny for it. And we're talking about NAD, and that is certainly expensive.
Yeah, no, well, there's no doubt. So NAD, just a quick summary. NAD plus is this key compound, and I'm going to keep it real simple. It's kind of this. It plays this important role in being able to take energy from the food we eat, which is essentially electrons, and moving those into your cell, moving them into the mitochondria, where they can be used to actually make cellular energy, ATP. So in that movement of energy is this key compound NAD+. And just like everything else, Dr. Crystal, it decreases and loses some function as we age.
That's right. And so being able to restore it is important. And what we're seeing in the study that we're wanting to highlight with the IV NAD therapy, this is in patients with heart failure due to ischemic cardiomyopathy.
Okay.
So we're talking a short-term benefit, a 7-day course of 10 milligrams of IV NAD. And the researchers specifically wanted to look at the ejection fraction. So, kind of that pumping
Yeah.
of the blood, how much blood, and this is your area of expertise. So feel free to jump in and
It's
and
very
explain
simple.
what that is.
No, you're fine. The ejection fraction is a bunch of blood comes in through the atria into the ventricle, and then the ventricle pushes that out, right? Well, you
Right.
don't push 100%. Matter of fact, pushing 100% of the blood out could be bad. The average ejection fraction is, between 55 and like 75%. That's
Mhm.
normal. So there's always some residual blood
Yeah. And
left
so
in
these
in
and
the ventricle.
Yeah, so there were 180 patients whose left ventricle ejection fraction was less than 45%.
Yeah, so that's
And
that's like a grade 2. They grade heart
yeah,
failure one to
yep,
that's like a grade 2. And you would call that mild. So these are the type of patients that have heart disease, no doubt, but they're still able to do a little bit of daily activity without too much impairment.
right. So they were class 2 to 3
Okay.
for the heart failure. And so a 7-day course, IV NAD, those participants, uh, there was significantly improved ejection fractions
Yeah.
at 1 month. And then there were some other parameters that the researchers found, that there were fewer unplanned heart failure hospitalizations. And people who are dealing with heart failure, they have a few times a year sometimes these events where they have hospital stays, and
For
they're
sure.
trying to get fluid off of off the body. And then there was also better heart New York Heart Association, kind of the heart failure, better class persisted up to 6 months, through 6
Okay.
months after just 7 days
Yeah.
of the
Of
10
NAD.
milligrams
Yeah.
of NAD.
No, listen, that is impressive. I would like to know, and I don't know if we have that here, like were they on normal heart failure type drugs, or was this just purely NAD? That would be kind of something to look at.
No,
Um,
they were. They
yeah,
were it was standard treatment plus the NAD.
right. So standard treatment, adding this on gave them a significant result, right? So
Mhm.
that's fantastic. It makes sense, right? You're getting more of this compound that's going to be driving more ATP production at
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah.
day. And it makes sense that it helps. And then, of course, why IV versus the oral form that I take. Now, keep in mind, the IV allows them, you're just getting it right into your system, right? So there's it's 100% bioavailability versus an oral form, which is not going to be near that. That's why the oral form is going to be 2, 3, 4, even up to 600 milligrams.
Right,
Um,
well, the oral form, you're also taking a precursor,
yeah, you're taking either
NR.
like well, NR is the main one we like, nicotinamide riboside, right? Yeah. So then that has to be converted and all that kind of stuff. So it's a totally different ballgame when you're talking about IV.
But we do know, if you're interested in taking it orally, it's a higher dose, as you mentioned, up to 1,000. I saw some studies with even 2,000 milligrams. But you do see a systemic impact with the at least NR, the precursor, up to 20 to 40% above baseline.
Yeah.
So that's for some individuals a more reasonable approach
It
to
makes you
restoring
wonder.
their NAD levels.
It makes you wonder if maybe this can be repeated, but with maybe oral forms. They're still on their heart failure medication, right? They're still getting standard of
Mhm.
care. So it wouldn't hurt to maybe try an oral trial as well. I did notice that they did not in this IV study measure NAD intracellular levels, right? Which that would have been nice to see too.
Right. I think there's some challenges there, but yes, they were not measured. No direct NAD levels were
Yeah.
measured at all. So that's a limitation.
But at the end of the
But
day,
we are
you're
seeing the outcomes.
yeah, you're seeing, listen, and at the end of the day, a short course of treatment, you're looking at less hospitalization, less events, you're looking at better ejection fraction. It's a win across the board.
It's a win, and it's a short-term study, but it's something we always like to bring what's hot off the press. That's the other part of the ins and outs. What's new, things that we're gonna keep our eyes on, and this is one thing for sure that stood out because we like supporting NAD.
Yeah, we do. It's considered really a longevity nutrient. Let's go on to in number 3, and these are life's simple 7 metrics. Dr. Crystal, I hope you're on top of this. I hope you've been following this and making sure I'm pretty sure you follow all these. Let's talk about, first of all, I love it when we're able to kind of look at all the different factors that may impact health and longevity, right? And then kind of put that all together with what, like, and coming up with kind of a list. What are the major things, and these are modifiable things that you can do to really make that impact for living forever-ish, right?
Right, and this is to clarify, these are cardiovascular health assessment, these 7 life simple 7s. These were developed by the American Heart Association, to try to shift the focus from disease to prevention. But the reason we're talking about them today, and we can go into what they are, but we are seeing that it translates beyond cardiovascular health into cancer
I believe that, right? When you look at these 7 behaviors, it makes sense,
So
right?
should we list them out? So,
Okay, let's
smoking.
smoking, boom, 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 big one, right? BMI, a normal BMI.
Uh-huh. Physical activity. So
Now,
and these are all of your standard recommendations that we hear all the time. Greater
right.
than 150 minutes per week, moderate or, greater than 75 minutes per week if you're doing vigorous intensity.
And then diet, meeting 4 to 5 of 5 dietary components, right? So that's fruits and vegetables. You want to do more than 4.5 cups a day, or 4.5 cups or more a day. Fish two times or more a week, right?
Mhm.
Fiber galore. It's just all I'm going to say, because I know Dr. Chris is going to be like, I don't know about that. Fiber rich whole grain, more than 3 servings a day. You probably want that around 6. Sodium less than 1,500 milligrams a day, and then watch all of your sugar beverages. You want to keep
Yep.
them less than listen to this, less than 450 calories per week,
Right.
not per
And
day.
so those are your health behaviors.
Yeah.
And then you have your health factors. And that's cholesterol less than 200 without treatment. Blood pressure less than 120/80 without treatment, and fasting glucose less than 100 without treatment. So those are your 7 life's simple 7.
Now, if you're
But
being, but there's a but.
no, 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 no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you look at those health factors and you see without treatment, excuse me, those are just the standard numbers, right? That we
Right.
consider normal. If you are on treatment, your goal is still those same numbers.
Well,
You're
really,
just on treatment. Now, you're right, cholesterol could be lower and all that based
yes.
on treatment. But generally speaking, treatment or not, these are kind of your guidelines here.
Absolutely. And then we have that brings us to our study published in the European Heart Journal,
Mm-hmm.
prospective population-based cohort study, 779 cancer survivors. And then there was a comparison group of cancer-free participants. And in the cancer-free participants, each 1 unit increase in this Life Simple 7 score was associated with a 10% lower cancer mortality. So that's why we kinda had to set up the Life Simple 7 so that you can just understand what they are and understand that this applies it's not just about cardiovascular disease. We know that the risk for cardiovascular disease and cancer it's very similar, those
Yeah.
risk factors.
So when they say 1 unit increase, is that, I just want to make sure I'm clarifying for everyone. That's like,
Mhm.
let's say I was doing 3 out of the 7, and now I've changed and I'm doing 4 out of 7,
Right.
or I went from 5 to 6 out of 7, something like that.
Mhm.
Okay. That's really not that big of a, that's not that bad. That allows you to focus on one thing.
Well, listen to this stat. Cancer survivors with ideal cardiovascular health had a 38% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to those with poor cardiovascular health. So, what we're saying here is these are simple strategies
Yeah.
that can increase your survival, and often we kinda think about cancer in a silo without kinda looking at some of these other factors and the role that they play.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, cancer or not, heart disease or not, I mean, these are, if you're doing well on all 7 of these things, you're probably doing well overall. I think, right? I mean, that's good
Yeah.
stuff. I think for all of us to follow, but definitely cancer survivors, keeping in mind your link to cardiovascular issues. Yeah, that's really important, I think. All right. So those are the 3 ins. Now, this is the out, Dr. Crystal. This is what we don't want to live forever ish. And it's altered gut microbiota from colonoscopy. Now, this is going to be confusing because don't we want colonoscopies?
Oh, yeah.
So
That's a part of living forever-ish.
yes.
Right?
So we want the colonoscopy as a screening, and you have to do that however often your doctor determines based on your risk, blah, 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 blah. So please, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the colonoscopy, what we're saying is that could kind of change some of the gut microbiome and then
That's exactly what we're saying.
and we got to address that then. Okay. Well, run us through how they figured this out.
Well, there were 301 randomized into probiotic and placebo groups participants. The probiotic group received probiotics, and this was 5 grams 3 times a day for 28 days after the colonoscopy.
Okay.
And so, of course, fecal samples were collected from participants. Symptoms were reported. They even looked at the intestinal microbiota composition. And they saw that the gut microbiota was altered after the colonoscopy.
Mhm.
There was growth of potentially pathogenic bacteria. So we are seeing that there were changes. There were changes in diversity after the colonoscopy as well. However, the probiotic group, there was a benefit. There were more of the beneficial lactobacillus probiotics, gastrointestinal symptoms, rating scale. There was improvement there in the probiotic group within the initial week. And patients in the probiotic group who exhibited symptoms experienced fewer days of abdominal discomfort post colonoscopy. And I think anyone who's had a colonoscopy can identify with that discomfort after the colonoscopy. So it's very simple. I think what we're saying here is, it can be a little bit challenging. That solution that you're drinking, you're clearing out the bowels.
Yep.
And that can have a negative impact on the bacteria or just really your gut bugs that's there, and why not replenish them?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's been debated for a while whether it's the colonoscopy itself or it's the bowel prep. But we've been teaching for a long time at Life Extension that, those pathogenic bugs, they are very resilient. They're going to be the first ones in to repopulate your gut. And so when you wipe everything out, the Pseudomonas and some of the other pathogens, they start popping up first. And that's why something like a good probiotic, I think, is important for anybody with colonoscopy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. This is fan. So really, this could turn into an in, and we could say, get your colonoscopy plus take a probiotic.
That's right.
And that could be
I had to twist it somehow because really the out was, you don't want those negative changes to persist after the colonoscopy.
Especially
we gave you some solutions.
Yeah, especially if you've been trying so hard to have a nice microbiome, gut microbiome, right? Spending money and everything, right? You want to keep it. So that's fantastic. There is our 3 ins and an out for living forever-ish. Don't forget that, it's not just about adding a bunch of years to your life. It's about adding strong, vibrant, as we say, what do we say, Dr. Crystal? a little. We're gonna live a little longer, but a whole lot stronger.
That's right.
That's
it.
That right?
You did it.
All right, and don't forget, you can go to liveforeverish.com. We have tons of other episodes that you can download, like, and share, comment, and of course, giving us a review is always fantastic. And we really do appreciate your time. You're such a wonderful audience. That's at liveforeverish.com. And then our sponsor, Life Extension, go over to lifeextension.com. And when you're at the cart, you can put the discount code in podcast to redeem 10% off $50 or more plus free shipping and handling. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
Thanks for listening.